Let's get on with the show. We're going to talk first about a game we've talked about countless times. We're going to probably talk about countless more times because it is a game as a service. We're going to talk about yet another controversy with a game as a service, and this is with Destiny 2, Matt. So,
I've only vaguely seen this unfold on my SIFT. I haven't paid a lot of attention to the specifics.
Yeah, so
maybe you need to explain it.
So what Bungie's been doing the last week and a half, 2 weeks, is getting ready for Curse of Osiris, the DLC that's coming out. And it's been doing live streams. It did one that showed off the gameplay and some maps, and it's kind of went through this series of stuff. Well, this has got so out of control that Bungie canceled the stream this week for Curse of Osiris to answer fan concerns. And essentially what's happened is people have discovered that Destiny 2 was, maybe it still is, they haven't fixed it yet, was set up so that if you were a power leveler, it would cut down on the XP that you earned. Were you aware of that, playing the game?
Because as I understand, they would cut down on what they gave you, but it would still say you were getting the full amount on the screen. And I sure as hell felt like I was getting more XP than was being reflected in my bar a few times.
You were.
So that explains
So I'm guessing
that.
You also probably would fall into the category of power level, or when you play.
At the time, I was for the first 3 weeks or so, I was really grinding hard to get to the raid level in the post game.
And I think a lot of people.
A couple times I'd be like, oh, I only have that much left, and I get that much. I was like, that seems like that should have been enough, but it wasn't. And like that happened a few times.
And so somebody figured it out.
I just thought I was crazy, basically.
Well, someone finally took the time to actually do the math and figure it out, and in fact, and then Bungie admitted, yes, that is the case.
Here's the thing, man. Like, how do developers and publishers ever think they're going to get away with this shit ever? Like, someone always figures,
Someone's gonna figure it
especially the online stuff. Like,
Yeah.
people will figure that stuff out. If you got someone doing something 1,000 times per week, they're going to notice something's odd.
Especially with a game like this, a game as a service
Yeah.
that people will play for like
Over and over and over
and
and
for
over.
a year or 2 years. Like, to think that you could pull the wool over someone's eyes and get away with it for more than a month or two, which obviously ended up not being the case. They didn't
Especially
make it
in the
that far.
climate we're in right now with EA and all this, it feels like at the very least you see that kind of reaction happening, and maybe you quietly turn the knob back up.
Exactly. Like with your next patch, you
Right.
just flip it. You're like, whoo, boy, we avoided
Dodged that one. Wow.
Nope. But I mean, part of it might be because the studio is completely focused on DLC,
Yeah.
on Curse of Osiris coming out, and maybe it just kind of slipped its mind, or it just wasn't paying a close enough attention to what was really going on out there. But holy cow, man. And so obviously the next logical step that gamers jump to, and I don't blame them for this at all, is they're like, oh, you were doing this so that people will pay money to level faster so the grind isn't as bad. And that is probably the rub with games as a service that is consistent with all of them. And that's the slippery slope that they have to manage, is how much grind is there?
How would that work in Destiny, though?
What do you mean?
Paying real money for that? Because the real money stuff doesn't have anything to do with progression.
I don't know. That's just what the gamers have said.
I think the gamers might be out of their tree on that one, because the only thing you pay real money for, as far as I'm aware, unless they changed it since I stopped playing regularly,
is possible,
was the bright engrams, and those only give you cosmetic things.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I thought when I played Destiny 2 for review and everything, I felt like it was not especially bad as far as how it handled microtransactions.
No, they're nice to haves. They're not, I need this to progress things.
And, I mean, the bigger point, though, is that
it's still annoying.
Right, because you're punishing your most dedicated players. It should be the opposite. You should be rewarding the people who love your game so that they keep coming back and they turn into evangelists for the game.
Yeah, this doesn't seem like a ploy to get you to spend money to progress. It seems like a ploy to keep you playing until they can get more money out of you for expansion stuff.
DLC stuff.
Yeah.
Which, again,
I mean, it's
in there to make more money.
the other side of the coin, really. You know?
At the end of the day,
but at least they want to give you content in this case.
Right.
Why has everyone got to be so sleazy?
Why do they, man? I mean, that's a good way to describe it. The industry has got really sleazy.
At least at that level, at that top AAA level.
I mean, I feel like there used to be
not to go Jim Sterling on you.
Right.
But
I feel like there used to be this level of honesty and trust that used to be in the industry. And I would argue that was back when Japanese games were more prevalent and were the dominant they were sort of the dominant territory where games were coming from. And since things have kind of switched over to the West, it's just slowly kind of eroded away.
Yeah, I don't know if that's because of the switch to the West or because of the a lot of the Western developers and publishers have gotten a taste of that mobile game cash.
Yeah.
And
but Japan's known that for a long time.
Yeah, but like there's more of a separation between the companies that do that in most cases, and I think you see this sort of, especially in the I mean, there is a Western element there where it's like the climate of kind of the venture capital, Silicon Valley thing going on, the startup idea, where like whatever you need to do to make it successful, that's what you do. Like that's sort of just how like the ethos of that kind of thing, and like you can see these top level publishers sort of getting to this point where like, well, okay, well, let's find a way to apply this crazy free money idea that works on the phones to the stuff that we spend $200 million to make. And but like the problem with that model is the model is designed to be exploitative in the sense of like you sell. It's the razor model. It's like you practically give the handle away and then you can make money selling the blades,
the cartridges. Yeah.
But now they're trying to sell you a $60 handle, and then they want to sell you a box that might have a blade in it.
Right. Or one of the blades might be sharp.
Maybe it's a sponge. You need a sponge too, right?
Yeah. But if you notice, I mean, not many Japanese games have loot boxes and microtransactions like this. The ones that do are generally the ones that are published in the West by a publisher like Bethesda.
No, tons of Asian stuff has that. I mean, that
like console games?
Not console games, but like the
mobile stuff does. I mean, they started
but also the
all.
free to play. I mean, that's the thing is like, a lot of the microtransaction stuff like stems from like Korean MMOs.
No, for sure.
Which all sell, but it's all costumes. Like that was the kind of the conundrum early on was like, Western gamers don't seem to care about costumes and stuff like in Asia. Like you can sell that stuff like crazy, and like certain games, I mean, like people want costumes in Overwatch or whatever. Like that. But in general, like the publishers here struggle to sell us, aesthetic items, and so the idea became like, oh, we'll make it like weapon. And then I was like, no, you can't do that. So there's this tension between them trying to like make the money. They're trying to make money off of microtransactions, but like the microtransaction model from Asia doesn't really work in the West because we don't want to pay for non-essential stuff. But if you make essential stuff for pay, we get angry. So there's sort of a loggerhead here where I don't think the publishers know which way to go, and you're sort of seeing, some publishers handle it better. I think Warner Brothers makes it fairly unobtrusive, even if it does create the grind in the final act of Shadow War or whatever. Like you can get a fair number of these things. Meanwhile, I think EA seems to do it the worst, where they are actually impacting the flow of the game in the name of encouraging you to buy these boxes or buy these microtransactions.
I was talking more about the Japanese games that we cover and our audience cares about, which are like the big console or maybe handheld Japanese games. They do microtransactions, obviously, just like Dead or Alive 5 last round.
Also, I mean,
but they don't
calculate
I've never seen one with loot boxes. A Japanese game.
No, I think loot boxes are too new in terms of like console level stuff. Because remember, like the Japanese stuff did kind of even lag behind in terms of the season pass, DLC stuff. I mean, we're only just now seeing Nintendo kind of embrace that model over the last few years, and if you
by the way, it does it way better than pretty much everyone else.
I don't know if it does it way better, but no one complains about it.
Yeah, I think it handles it pretty well.
I think it handles it in a fairly standard model, and no one complains because it's Nintendo. Because if you calculate how much money you have to spend to get all the DLC for Hyrule Warriors or Fire Emblem Warriors, or even some of the recent Fire Emblem games, nuh-uh.
But
like,
they also
that's huge.
They put out a lot of content.
There is a lot of content in there, but also like it's still the same thing. You're not getting the whole game for the $60 price tag. I don't know why that's okay when they do it and not okay when everyone else does it. I mean, Zelda's got a season pass right now, and like you could.
Shouldn't we be getting the single-player Zelda stuff soon?
Should be, but I've heard that the Game Awards might be the sort of
the coming out party.
The coming out for the final Zelda DLC. But also the other thing about the Zelda DLC is like the first, not the first thing that came out, but then the second thing that came out with a lot of that stuff was quality of life stuff that should have been in the base game.
Oh, for sure.
And like
agreed, yeah.
No one goes after them for that.
Well, I don't think anyone's going to complain about getting Breath of the Wild earlier and then getting that stuff later, because people just want to play Zelda.
Mm-hmm. But like, no one accused them of cutting out the map niceties.
No, you're right.
To save them to sell the expansion pass later, did they?
Yeah.
Because there's this weird sense that, like you just said, like the Japanese companies are honest with us, and the American companies
I wouldn't say honest. I'd say more honest.
Yeah, but it's like I just feel like you're just at different stages with those, the two sides of the Pacific.
So you think Japan's going to get to where the West is now?
I think they will.
But the bottom line is, it came from the West.
Unless they take the lessons from how the Western publishers are being revolted against, and Nintendo is smart enough to look at that and be like, yeah, let's not do that. Let's not put random hat loot boxes in the next Mario game. That's probably not a great move.
I think another problem that's intrinsic to video games is it's very easy to hide stuff like Bungie did. I mean, look, someone eventually found it, and it makes sense that they found it within a month or two.
Right.
But still, there was a month or two where nobody picked up.
That was a long time. That's a long time in game time.
Yeah. I mean, you think about the billions of hours that game has been played. It took before someone noticed this. That's the problem. It's like all this stuff can be hidden under the hood. It's never like obvious and in your face, with the exception of loot boxes and things like that.
Well, I think it's coming
very
down,
easy to hide stuff in code.
I think it's going to come down to a demand for transparency. And I wouldn't have necessarily extended it to what kind of XP level. I mean, you think that what the number that appears on the screen is accurate to what you're getting. I mean, that seems pretty obvious.
You just assume,
But it's like, it's weird how this has been sort of, I think that ties in with a loot box thing to some degree, where it's like, I'm not a proponent of them being regulated as gambling, but I do think there should be a requirement to mark a game, either ESRB rating or whatever else you want to make it. You should be able to look at the package and see that they're on there. And they should do the thing that China does, where you have to show the percentages,
right?
To know.
I think it'll eventually.
I think they'll get there. I think we'll get there. EA is definitely the canary in that coal mine. The Battlefront 2 thing cracks me up just because I can't believe they thought they'd get away with all that.
We'll get to all that a little later, but
it's just this feels like part of that same sort of. I mean, it's not like necessarily the same thing, but it feels like part and parcel of the whole, like, the AAA publishers want to kind of pull the wool over everybody's eyes to, like, in the name of a little extra customer retention, a little extra microtransaction money, couple more sales, a little more, hang on to that. It's like, I mean, they've been trying to do that for years, like, where that was the whole point of all that multiplayer stuff and putting XP leveling systems in the Call of Duty. It was like, so you wouldn't get tired of the multiplayer and you wouldn't sell the game. I mean, it's that treadmill Skinner box thing where it's like, oh, every time you level up, you get cool new perks and stuff. So I'm going to hold on to this game. It's like, well, maybe I should turn this game in. Maybe I should turn Call of Duty Modern Warfare in and get it. Well, I don't want to do that because I'm like level 35 and I've put all this time into it, so I'll just keep playing that. Like, that's the whole idea. They've been trying to kind of psychologically manipulate us to play their game and not anything else for years now, and it's starting to get, I think, a little more insidious.
Yeah, I think what bothers me the most about this specific case is that it appears it was Bungie's decision to do this.
Yeah, someone knew where that slider was.
This wasn't Activision being evil overlords and going to Bungie and saying, "Hey, you need to tweak it so people aren't getting the XP that they really earned."
And it's like, it's so weird because it wasn't everything, was it? It was like the public events and stuff were affected, but like the raid stuff wasn't, and I think the multiplayer stuff wasn't. It was like they were intentionally trying to funnel you without telling you towards like different types of events. It's like if you prefer to do the public event things, you were getting screwed. And it's like, why are they internally prioritizing one type of gameplay event over the others? And maybe that's just me talking because I like the public events.
Right.
I like doing that.
I do too, yeah.
And it's like, I like to stop and just do that. And it's like, why are you not making that worth my while? Like, it's so weird.
Well, they have the data.
Right.
So maybe they've looked at it and said, this is where people are generating.
Do this all the time. Yeah.
This is where people are generating most of the XP from. If we can cut back on that and we don't cut it somewhere else, maybe if somebody discovers we're doing this, they'll try to watch it somewhere else and they'll think, oh, I'm wrong. I wasn't right. Like, I thought they were gypping me on my XP, but it turns out that they really weren't.
I just don't get where like the end game is there, because like if you're not going to tell anyone they're getting less, how are they going to know? Because I was doing the public events things, like a lot of grinding with that, and like I just was assuming I wasn't calculating what the experience bar was properly,
right?
And like it didn't stop me from playing public events.
Yeah. I
still did the same thing. I don't know what their end game was on that.
What doesn't make any sense if you look at it from this angle as well is I can't even play the raid still. Mm-hmm. Like, we ran into this during the marathon stream I did on Monday for the Patreon. I wanted to play like those events that are in Assassin's Creed Origins, where you fight like the bosses or whatever. Like, I boot up the game, and it's a big alert comes up. Hey,
oh yeah, the trials of Sobek.
Yeah. Like, there's a new one, and I go, yeah, that's awesome. Like, I'll play this for the stream. It's perfect. Nope, had to be level 40. Same thing. I mean,
you know how long I've been playing that game, and I still can't play those trials.
Yeah, it's insane.
I'm like level 35 still.
I don't get it.
And a couple levels make a big difference in that game.
Yeah. I mean, well, obviously, with any game, once you start getting into the higher levels, each level is tough.
Origins has a level gating obsession.
Yeah.
Which I think.
Well, apparently, so does Destiny too.
Well, I mean, that's the whole point. Is like you grind your way up. I mean, I'm still not like power leveled enough to comfortably do the raid. I think I could if I was with people that could. Like, I think I'm like 277 or 278, and like 280.
I think 280 is like they said like baseline.
You can do it like at 270, but like 280 is sort of like preferred.
You're not going to die every 5 seconds.
Yeah, like your team isn't going to have to take care of you,
right.
basically.
Yeah.
And it's just like it's just that constant like turning in, hoping that engram is one more thing higher. It's like,
why do they make it harder to get there? It's crazy. You think you would want players to experience your content? That
I mean, that was a question I had about the first one too, where it's like you put the grind of MMOs into this, but no one likes that.
Yeah, that's the thing they don't like.
That's not the element of MMOs you should be bringing over to encourage people to play. And like,
I would love to try that raid, but there's no way in hell I'm going to spend like 20 or 30 hours just grinding through the same enemies.
Well, it doesn't take that long.
I'm exaggerating.
It's like, I had a plan for what engrams to turn in and all the rep stuff to do. It took me like 2 nights to get from whatever I was after the end of the story to like 270.
But who does that though? Who's like goes
near as I can tell,
maximizes
everyone.
Their plan and like really?
Anyone trying to play that endgame content. I mean, that's what the endgame of an MMO is.
Yeah.
Is doing that. I think
or
Destiny.
You can just play it and eventually get there.
Not really, because you got to make sure because the loot that drops is related to what power level you've already got. So like I'm using weapons that I don't like because they're the highest power weapons I have because I want that one number higher thing to drop.
Right.
And I'm desperately hoping I get a better exotic later because I'm stuck with a hand cannon. I hate hand cannons. But like that's what I got to use because it's like 20 higher than anything else I got.
Yeah.
And like you're at the mercy of whatever drops and has the purple mod on it. Is sort of how it works.
It's crazy where video games have gone just in the last like 3 years. Mm-hmm. Like if you had talked to me when I was starting SIFTD about stuff like this, I'd have been like, "What? No way!" Like, and here we are. Just a few years later, everything is kind of flipped upside down and turned on its head. And it's not going to stop. Like, this is going to be something that's going to be discussed for the next year, probably 3 years to come, until we kind of finally reach that happy medium, so to speak.
There's one thing for sure. I hope Bungie will not touch their sliders for a while.
Yeah, I don't think they will.
Clearly, people are watching.
They will definitely be watching now. And when you think about the amount of people that are playing, now that the community's been alerted to this, a lot more eyeballs are going to be watching. So Bungie, at this point, there's no way they could turn that stuff
they can
back
never
on.
mess with that again, really.
Thank God for us, the gamers. Because otherwise, we just get manipulated all freaking day long.
At the very least, if you're going to do that, reflect it in the UI.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to give me 50 XP instead of 100? Just say 50. Yeah. And then we can get mad about how you drop the XP, but at least you're not lying to me.
Yep.